WLNS is here for you, celebrating 75 years of bringing you the news with 6 News at 5:30.
Right now at 5:30, an investigation is underway after a deputy-involved deadly shooting in Michigan. Plus, a glacier takes out an entire village, leaving massive amounts of ice, rock, and mud. And firefighters had to get creative as they worked to free a trapped dog. All that and much more in the first 6 minutes. Thank you for joining us. I'm Siobhan Clever. Let's start that clock. And we begin tonight in Kent County, where reaction is coming in after a judge dismissed a murder case against a former Michigan State Police detective sergeant who hit a suspect with his cruiser, killing him. Speaking to reporters today from the Mackinac Policy Conference, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel called it a miscarriage of justice. She had charged Brian Keeley with second-degree murder and manslaughter in the death of Samuel Sterling. Police, including Keeley, were pursuing Sterling in a parking lot to arrest him for various warrants. Sterling was running when a cruiser driven by Keeley rammed into him, killing him. Nessel says she's considering an appeal. Well, staying in Kent County, the family of Patrick Lioya is upset. The county prosecutor decided not to retry the case. Lioya was shot and killed by a Grand Rapids police officer while fighting with him after a traffic stop. Officer Christopher Schur wrestled with Lioya for several minutes before shooting him in the back of the head. Schur testified in court that he feared for his life before pulling the trigger. Today, Lioya's legal team held a news conference in Detroit. They say justice was not served.
Fight for these folks and fight for justice for Patrick Lioya, and once and for all, so that the world can see what really happened that day, and not from a perspective of just a police officer, but as a person.
Video of the incident showed Lioya and Schur fighting over Schur's taser. The mistrial was declared after the jury deliberated for several days, but could not reach a verdict. In Calhoun County, police body camera video has been released showing the moments leading up to a deadly deputy-involved shooting. It happened near Marshall yesterday. Officials say a man pointed what looked like a gun at police, but it turned out to be a BB gun. Police were at a home responding to a call about a suicidal person. They say that's when a 41-year-old man pointed a gun and said, "Shoot me." In the video, a deputy can be heard telling the man to put the gun down before it pauses, and that's when the deputy opened fire. 2 Kalamazoo County men are in federal prison tonight, sentenced this week for their involvement in trafficking fentanyl in 2023, causing a wave of overdoses. At least 7 of those were fatal. 42-year-old James Smith is serving a 20-year prison sentence, and 27-year-old Patrick Martin is serving 4 years. Attorneys say distribution of fentanyl continues to take lives and destroy communities. Staying with court news, a California man is free after spending 16 years behind bars for sexually assaulting a family member because authorities now say he did not do it. Ajay Dev was originally sentenced to 378 years in prison, accused of assaulting a relative that he helped come to the U.S. from Nepal. A judge vacated that sentence after new evidence was presented earlier this month that debunked an alleged confession from Dev and argued that the victim admitted to making up the story. In Nepal, the relative was convicted of passport fraud and perjury. In Washington state, 7 people were injured after a mass shooting in a park last night. Officials say 3 of them are in critical condition tonight. Police say they think multiple suspects were involved, but no arrests have been made so far. They say it was very chaotic when they got there since so many people were at the park when this happened. In New York City, protests erupted into chaos last night outside of a federal immigration court. Officers and crowds clashed over barricades. About 24 protesters were taken into custody for charges that include obstruction of government administration. Under the Trump administration, advocates say it's becoming increasingly common for ICE agents to arrest and detain migrants at their immigration court hearings. Looking now at news around the world, as wildfires continue to burn, thousands of residents have been evacuated from at least a dozen communities and work sites in the province of Saskatchewan in Canada. Officials say it's a very aggressive spring fire season. In light of the severity of the wildfire situation, First Nations leaders have deep concerns about critical shortages in firefighting resources, personnel, and air support. Today, people living in a small village in Switzerland took stock of the massive damage from a glacier collapsing onto their homes. Scientists say it's another example of how climate change impacts the Alps. A massive amount of ice, mud, and rock crashed down from a mountain on Wednesday, engulfing some 90% of the village of Blatten. Its 300 residents had already been evacuated earlier in May after part of the mountain behind the Birch Glacier began to crumble. One 64-year-old man remains missing. Well, it's the end of its climbing season, and Nepal's government is discussing ways to protect the Himalayas from the risks of climate change and the growing number of climbers attempting to scale the region's summits, especially Everest. This year's season was met with unpredictable weather, among other issues. A team of soldiers and Sherpas removed 11 tons of garbage, 4 dead bodies, and a skeleton from Everest during the climbing season last year. Well, this is the moment a dog in Pennsylvania is rescued from a storm drain after being trapped for more than 6 hours. It happened yesterday evening. Firefighters tried for a while to free the dog. They had to use a specialized camera to see it stuck in debris inside an outlet pipe. After nearly 6 hours of trying, they cut the road to reach the pipe, and the dog was freed and not hurt. And rounding up the first 6 minutes of news tonight, renowned British street artist Banksy strikes again. The artist revealed his latest work on his Instagram account. The graffiti depicts the shadow of a simple metal street pole as a lighthouse silhouette with light beams extends from it. The text over the image reads, "I want to be what you saw in me." Banksy keeps his identity hidden, and his works, Kendall, as you probably know because we've talked about him before, can fetch millions of dollars.
I just hope one day to even be close to that artistic.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even draw like a horse, you know, or a cow successfully.
Can't draw a straight line. So let alone to see something like that and to have that idea is pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's very, very creative.
Yeah.
I love that, like, no one knows exactly who he is, too,
know.
which is kind of fun. You know a lot about the weather, though, Kendall, so what do you got for us this week?
Yeah, you know, we are going to still have the chance for a couple of isolated sprinkles today. More rain possible tomorrow, but I promise we have a very beautiful and sunny forecast for the weekend.
Ooh, we want to hear that. Those details coming up after the break, and then later in this week's Popcorn Picks, get ready for another high-flying installment of the legacy of the Karate Kid. That and much more still to come, so keep it right here.